he would be extremely proud of her. I really do.
She's alive.
She's alive. She's alive. Let me tell you, she's right now.
On August 10th, 1990, Jennifer Schuett was an 8-year-old girl living in Dickinson, Texas, a small town where children played outside until dark and families felt safe. Jennifer was a bright, energetic child with an infectious smile. That summer night, like many others, she went to bed feeling secure in the home she shared with her mother. But what was supposed to be another ordinary night turned into a nightmare that would haunt her for years.
As far as I can remember back in my childhood, I just didn't like the dark or sleeping alone. So I found comfort in going to bed with my mom. We were all that we had was each other.
Jennifer was asleep in her bed when a man entered her apartment. This intruder was Dennis Earl Bradford, a 26-year-old mechanic with a history of violence and a hidden darkness. Bradford silently crept into Jennifer's room, picked her up, and carried her out of the apartment without waking her mother or anyone else in the building. Jennifer awoke in his arms, but terrified and confused, she remained silent as Bradford drove her away from her home. Bradford took Jennifer to a secluded field in nearby League City, Texas. There, he carried out his horrific intentions. He sexually assaulted the young girl, subjecting her to unspeakable trauma. After the assault, Bradford strangled Jennifer until she lost consciousness. He assumed she was dead, but to ensure no one would ever find her alive, he used a knife to slit her throat from ear to ear. Believing he had killed her, Bradford left Jennifer in the field to die and drove away into the night. Despite the severity of her injuries, Jennifer was still alive. Her throat had been cut so deeply that her windpipe was exposed, but she miraculously remained conscious. Unable to speak or move due to the injuries, Jennifer lay in the field, struggling to stay alive. Hours passed, and the night turned into morning. The next day, on August 11th, 1990, Jennifer was discovered by 2 children playing in the field. They initially thought she was a discarded doll, but upon closer inspection, they realized she was a gravely injured little girl. They quickly alerted a nearby adult, who called the police. Jennifer was rushed to the hospital, where doctors were astonished by her will to survive.
I remember being put into the life flight helicopter. I remember.
Despite the life-threatening injuries, Jennifer was conscious and alert. The wound to her throat was so severe that her vocal cords were nearly severed, making it impossible for her to speak. However, her determination to communicate with the authorities was unwavering. Even in her weakened state, Jennifer knew she had to help the police catch the man who had done this to her. Using a notepad, she wrote down details about the attack. She described her abductor's face, the car he drove, and the events of that horrific night.
I remember saying that he looked greasy and like he may have had a scar or something on his face. I remember writing down that there were beer cans in the car and the brand of cigarettes that he had. Just every little detail that I could remember, everything that I thought would help in finding him.
Her description was detailed enough to produce a composite sketch, but despite her efforts, the investigation stalled. The police had no leads, and Dennis Bradford remained a free man, living his life as if nothing had happened. The case went cold, and for nearly 2 decades, Jennifer's attacker remained unidentified. The trauma from the assault and the struggle to recover both physically and emotionally marked Jennifer's life. She was left with a deep scar across her throat, a constant reminder of the night she was left for dead. Jennifer refused to let the attack define her. As she grew older, she became more determined to find the man who had nearly taken her life. She was outspoken about her case, often sharing her story with others in the hope that someone would come forward with new information. In 2008, Jennifer's case was re-examined by Detective Tim Cromie and FBI Special Agent Richard Renison.
And I got a phone call that Detective Tim Cromie would be taking over my case and he wanted to meet with me.
Advances in DNA technology provided a new opportunity to solve the case. The evidence collected from Jennifer's assault, including the semen found on her underwear, was submitted for DNA testing. This time, there was a match. The DNA from the crime scene was matched to Dennis Earl Bradford, who had been arrested in Arkansas in 1996 for an unrelated crime. Bradford's DNA was in the national database because of his prior arrest, and the match was conclusive. After nearly 19 years, Jennifer's attacker was identified.
When they called me that morning and told me that they really arrested this person, Dennis Earl Bradford, it was the most surreal moment of my life.
We were hoping, most importantly, to get a confession. We didn't want there to be any way this could be beat in court.
In September 2009, Dennis Bradford was arrested at his home in Little Rock, Arkansas. At the time of his arrest, Bradford was married with children and living a seemingly normal life. He had managed to evade justice for years, but now the past had caught up with him. During interrogation, Dennis Bradford confessed to the crime.
Your application come in contact with her? Yes. Your application? Tell me about that. No. There's two sides to every story. There is no other side to the story. If you were to see her, I think you would be extremely proud of her. I really do. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive. Let me tell you the secret right now.
His confession left no doubt about his guilt, and he was charged with attempted capital murder and aggravated sexual assault. Jennifer finally had the answers she had been seeking for nearly 2 decades. She confronted Bradford in court, where he faced the consequences of his actions.
Above all, I'd like to thank Detective Tim Comey with the Dickinson Police Department and Special Agent Richard Renison with the FBI for all of their hard work and dedication over the last year and a half, and for his promise from day one, never giving up on my case, and for hearing my voice and seeing my determination.
However, before the trial could proceed, Dennis Bradford took his own life in jail in May 2010. He hanged himself, denying Jennifer and her family the opportunity to see him sentenced for his crimes.